All right. So, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you can continue, Prime Minister.
Okay, sir, I'll start. Now, essentially, so to speak, in a country as diverse as India, the only way one can make major policy changes work is to make it an emotional movement. So now, given that the level of social stratification, we need to move away from the social responsibility to individual liberty. Now, what the Swachh Bharat mission has done is that we have started focusing on individual responsibility. Now, we must understand that several psychologists have also said that true behavior change is based on identity change. So unless we make it a movement of sorts, unless we bring in a certain emotional equivalent, this mission would not have worked. However, this has been very successful, and this is something which me and my fellow colleagues will be elaborating on. Now, speaking of the Swachh Bharat mission, we must understand that this is a three-pronged approach. The first approach is that we are focusing on the environmental change. So all the stakeholders that are involved, whether it's the state governments, whether it's the village motivators, whether it's the day-to-day Nagriks of several rural areas, this is centered around them. Second thing which we are focusing on is the health and hygiene, of course. And third and final thing, which is a larger narrative for this sort of mission, is abolishing class and caste bias system. Now, this mission has been very successful in pandering to all of these three-pronged approaches. So now I'll be speaking about the financial benefits that this scheme has been successful in promulgating. Um, we must understand that tourism and Swachh Bharat are intricately linked. Now, India is a land of cultural heritage and rich history. So now tourism can generate employment for a sizable percentage of our population. To put the Swachh Bharat mission has helped in generating employment through tourism and has in turn boosted the Indian GDP, so to speak. Second part, the health. Now, as per WHO estimates, a sizable population of India was malnourished. Not to mention, necessary basics were not provided in several villages. So, what the Swachh Bharat mission has done is unhygienic conditions, which were a major root cause for diseases and several illnesses, has been curbed. So, any disease has a financial impact both in terms of expenditure and the potential income of a certain family. So, for example, a certain patient, somebody's mother in a rural place has been infected by a certain ailment, which is primarily caused because of unhygienic conditions. Essentially, even the earning member becomes uh, becomes dependent and has to spend days and nights in government hospitals. So this is something which the Swachh Bharat mission tends
POI,
to. Yes, sir.
does the Prime Minister realize that the Prime Minister is opposing the status quo instead of proposing right now?
I'm sorry.
Does the Prime Minister realize that he's opposing the status quo instead of proposing?
Sir, I feel you've misunderstood the topic at hand. We are essentially supporting the Swachh Bharat mission, talking about how it's been successful in promulgating several schemes. I hope that answers your question.
Please continue.
Yeah. So coming to the Swachh Bharat mission with regards to health has been successful in plugging this loss and helping ease burden on the existing health problems. So what the Swachh Bharat mission has done is that we are focusing on primary healthcare. We must understand that the major burden of tertiary healthcare is actually a public-private partnership. So if we work on the primary healthcare, there won't be a need for moving on to tertiary healthcare. Also, given that 60 to 70% beds in the tertiary healthcare are held by private players, so we must understand that primary healthcare is something which the Swachh Bharat mission has been very successful uh, in pushing this forth, and thus it's a great deterrent. Now coming to the fourth aspect of the financial benefits. Speaking of clean technology, now gradually focusing on cleanliness and hygiene has shifted focus towards the use of clean technology, that is, which is non-polluting in nature. Focusing on new technology has also led to new skill development for innovation, thus helps in generating new employment or entrepreneurial opportunities for India's youth. So this also in turn works as a skill generation and further on employment generation scheme. Fifth point finally being the individual productivity which we speak of, we've always heard from a long time that a healthy body results in a healthy mind. So high productivity can be achieved, and this will lead to higher earning potential. To put this into perspective, let's take the example of an auto driver. Now an auto driver who is following clean practices, who is following the Swachh Bharat Mission guidelines, will be able to work for 12 hours a day instead of 8 hours, and thus can earn 50% more than he was earning in the past. Also, this mission, like I said in the beginning, this also helps in breaking the class and caste bias, because when you bind people together with some sort of emotional resonance, there is a large impact which is created, and people actually come together, and this in turn breaks class and caste biases. According to estimates, to put this into perspective, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has said that the number of diarrhea cases and other diseases have significantly decreased, and not to mention the other benefits which can be enumerated, which have also led to climate change and will in turn help in the world progress with regards to global warming as well. Uh, the improved life expectancy which people are experiencing. So secondly, the UNICEF reports and WHO reports and several other reports which speak about how the Swachh Bharat mission has been successful in curbing primary healthcare issues. Finally, influencing the mind and behavior of people, which will in turn help them cultivate a stronger country, a stronger Bharat, and in turn a stronger world. And finally, the political support which this mission also has uh, gotten. So all these parameters help us ascertain that this is successful in promulgating Swachh Bharat, and on a larger scale, climate change and global warming can also be dealt with accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. Now I would invite the leader of opposition to present his stand.
Am I clearly audible? Hello?
Yeah.
All right. Am I clearly audible?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, honorable judging panel, worthy opponents, and punctual timekeeper. I must say, I found the government speech very amusing because they have clearly misunderstood the status quo at hand. They are, in fact, supporting our arguments. So I must say, is there really a need for me to speak? To make my stance very clear and explain why the Prime Minister has completely misunderstood the entire point of this debate, I would like to read the motion for everyone. This House believes that the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has been called a successful venture by politicians and people alike, but the emphasis on but India still continues to be amongst the top in countries contributing to climate change, global warming, and pollution. That is the motion at hand. So it is the job of the government to point out the lacking of India in using renewable resources and how Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was actually a policy failure. Since my worthy opponents have already pointed out multiple merits, I will just go on
Point
and
of information.
no, thank you. I would like to go on and present our arguments. So to explain why we will conclusively win this debate, we are going to be presenting 4 arguments. So we would like to point out the main objectives of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and how it has met those objectives, development in rural areas. We will also like to talk about SDG 6 and SDG 9. Further clarification will be done by my deputy leader of opposition. We will also talk about effectiveness of policy. Now, the opposition and the prime minister has helped us significantly, but also forgot to define what Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is. So it was an Abhiyan initiated on 2nd October 2014, or a government policy. It is essentially a cleanliness drive that is specifically engineered to fit the minimal microscopic healthcare and cleanliness needs of rural India, and not stressing upon our development ambitions. Ladies and gentlemen, no government in over 40 years has stressed enough on rural healthcare other than the government we have today. The opposition would like to make it clear that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is solely responsible for combating the issue of sanitation and pollution in the country. There are different policies being implemented by the government which ultimately take care of the problem of global
Point
warming
of
and climate
information.
change. No, thank you. So Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is the
The point of
largest
information is
global-
allowed.
Pardon?
Point of information is allowed.
I think the point
Yeah,
of
but I don't want to answer it.
information has to be.
You may not answer it, but they can ask.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
saying no. So, as I was saying,
Yes,
on a cosmopolitan level, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is the largest global cleanliness drive organized by BJP. Now, getting into some statistics and numbers, we are going to look at the rural areas, the area that is often neglected by every government that India has had previously. So the government has built 100 million toilets
Point of information.
during the span of, no thank you, during the span of this Abhiyan. This includes 80 to 85%. This covers 80 to 85% of rural coverage. And in over 5,64,000 villages, they have made systems that make sure that these villages are open defecation free, which means installation of toilets and hygiene facilities. The government has also made a Swachhta index where it carefully categorizes and ranks states by their efforts put into this drive. This is done not only to track the working of the policy, but also to and the central government also incentivizes economic benefits to the following cities. Now, I would like to take any point of information if you have. Anyone? All right. Fair enough.
Information.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, in the initial parts of your speech, the first critique that you pointed out at the speech of the Prime Minister was that the major emphasis of the mission has been on rural healthcare, but then you go on to eventually appreciate the same. What is really your stance apart from elitivizing the whole issue?
Our stance is very simple. It is just what the motion says it is. We are just in direct opposition. So we are saying that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was amazing. It did what it was supposed to do, and it was a landmark policy. We also want to emphasize on the fact that it is different from issues of climate change and global warming. We are going to, my second speaker will also emphasize on how it has combated pollution and brought about industrial change. And to conclude, this policy has been revolutionary in providing right to life with dignity to rural India, and in a sense, is the expansion of our constitutional beliefs throughout the country. Thank you.
Minister, can I start my speech?
Deputy Prime Minister, you can start.
Firstly, I point out that
I would like to. I'm sorry to
Swachh
interrupt.
Bharat
I'm
no
sorry to-
connections to development per se, but may I
I'm
point
so
out?
sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Just a minute. If you want to have audible, the breaking of the table. Again,
I-
please start from the top, and if the time is really started, we'll get the practice to the and this is the opposition team. Thank you so much.
I couldn't really hear what you said.
What
Could
I'm
you
saying
maybe?
is, yeah. So you're breaking up in the beginning, and you missed the part of the speech, and I request the time to restart your time. This is a request from the opposition team, and I would request you to start the speech from the top. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can I start now?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so firstly, I'd like to point out how the leader of opposition very well mentioned about development. Well, let me tell you that the main purpose of Swachh Bharat was development, because we believe that development needs to come from both sides, rural and urban sides. So Swachh Bharat has been one of the best ways to bring forth rural development, which was highlighted by our Prime Minister. And I'd also like to highlight that almost 8 crore rural households, including scheduled caste scheduled tribes, women-headed households, and small and landless farmers, have been offered financial incentives of about 12,000 to have toilets in their houses. And not just that, I don't think anyone has realized the parallel that is drawn with poor hygiene and sanitation facilities and rape and sexual assaults. Because let me put this in perspective. There are so many women out there who go to secluded places just for defecation, and this puts them in danger. So the fact that they can have toilets in their house gives them that protection. And now I'd also like to highlight on some global aspects. A lot of electronic devices are just constantly thrown illegally in developing countries. The government, however, has taken various steps to curb this. We have been taking steps since 2017. And not just that, industrial pollution is not the only environmental problem. We also have deforestation, desertification, soil erosion. And all of this is being stopped and reduced drastically only due to Swachh Bharat. And I should also mention that China and United States and European Union are producing most of the greenhouse gases, and they are annihilating the troposphere, and the capitalists waver between denial and powerless summit. So what I'm getting at is that these developing countries are exploiting these developed countries are exploiting us developing countries, and by bringing in more schemes like Swachh Bharat and by bringing in schemes like Swachh Bharat, what we're basically doing is we are becoming more self-reliant. We are of being our own people. And not just that, even UNICEF has said that the return on investment for Swachh Bharat has been over 400%. And even various international experts have also constantly spoken about how Swachh Bharat is the key for development. I'd also like to highlight on how a lot of sustainable development goals can easily be achieved through Swachh Bharat, especially in India, because open defecation is a large problem. And I'd also like to talk about how water pollution is very high in India. Like because of water pollution, we have higher rates of death. Yes.
So is the speaker saying that the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was a complete success and is in no way contributory to climate change, global warming, or pollution, thus opposing the status quo yet again?
I couldn't hear your last point. Can you repeat your question?
The speaker supporting the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan in such a way by stating that it is opposing the status quo in today's debate and reiterating our speaker's arguments.
No, what I'm saying is that Swachh Bharat has actually been an active contributor to development and has also taken us in various global levels, and it has helped us become better. And not just that, through Swachh Bharat, we're able to get better employment, we're able to get better foreign investments. So I am saying that we are on progress to becoming a better nation through Swachh Bharat. And now I was highlighting about water pollution and how there are very high rates of death from cholera, typhoid, diarrhea, etc. And more than 1.7 billion people in the whole world suffer from inadequate supply of drinking. And may I point out that various programs like the National Mission for Clean Ganga Management has help in making Ganga clean again. And not just that, in addition to that, we have put a lot of emphasis on sewage treatments, making it a lot easier for people in the rural area, especially to get easier access to clean drinking water and clean water in general. So I just like to say that developing countries are in a place where we are still almost reliant on developed countries. So Swachh Bharat is one way where we can become self-reliant. So I'd just like to say that Swachh Bharat is good and has helped us go to global levels, and that the leader of opposition was wrong in saying that this has nothing to do with development, was wrong in saying that that global standards are not met. I believe that global standards are met, and I definitely believe that thanks to Swachh Bharat, that India has gone to a different area all on its own. How much time do I have left?
20 seconds.
Okay, so just to conclude, I'd like to say that leader of opposition, firstly, what you stated was wrong, and also secondly, thank you for talking about Swachh Bharat. And I know that, at least based on your research, you also know that the main key to development is by bringing rural development ahead too. So rural development has resulted in the end in development in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Deputy Leader of Opposition, you can place your stand.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Can you increase the audio?
It's on maximum right now. Is it better? Hello?
Yes, you are audible. Kindly continue.
All right. Most honorable panel of the jury and my most worthy opponents, right? As deputy leader of opposition, there's quite a bit I was supposed to say in today's debate. However, I'd like to point out the most critical flaw in the government side today. We have two teams opposing the motion. In most cases, we have a team proposing the status quo and one opposing the status quo. Yet, clearly, government has not read the motion. So let me reiterate the motion one more time. The motion on today's floor is this House believes that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has been called a successful venture by politicians and people alike. But India still continues to be amongst the top in countries contributing to climate change, global warming, and pollution. What the government was supposed to do was to say that the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has not been successful because it has not been able to successfully counter these problems such as climate change, global warming, and pollution. And what the opposition was supposed to do and what we have been doing is saying that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has been a good measure and has been working towards this, right? So the deputy leader of the government, the deputy prime minister came up and said a lot of things to try to counteract my leader of opposition's argumentation. But however, I'd like to point out the leader of opposition's argumentations were also in support of the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which is essentially what the team government has done so far. So in a sense, we're both supporting the same ideology, but apparently they're trying to create some kind of false dichotomy, which makes no sense in today's debate. Furthermore, she went on to say how my first speaker said that it has not indulged in development. If she paid clear attention to what the leader of opposition had said, she would have noticed that he did not say that it does not lead to development. Rather, he said that the sole goals of the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan do not pander to development, which is exactly what it does. However, like my argument, yes.
Sir, could you please justify for the benefit of this house that how the deputy prime minister and the prime minister actually relating capitalism and the unequal power structure has made pollution and global warming so bad, and Swachh Bharat is a great step in that direction, but because the condition is already so bad, there isn't a great amount of result that could have been brought by Swachh Bharat. Could you justify that with the statements you just made?
Yes, first of all, the POI is supposed to be 20 seconds if I'm not wrong, and not in the form of an argument. However, I will counter everything you said by breaking down your fallacies and argumentation. First of all, today's debate focuses solely on the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. It's a cost-benefit analysis between Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, pollution, climate change, and so on and so forth. So bringing capitalism and other abstract concepts of society into this debate is not within the scope of today's debate. So therefore, by default, those do not apply. However, if you're saying capitalism is the sole responsibility, the sole contributor to pollution, that is again yet a valid argument. Because if you were to research into India's reasons for pollution and contributing to climate change, there's more than 100 other reasons which might include capitalism. So you cannot be the sole benefit. And yes, again, as team opposition, we endorse Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and we say Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is good and has worked towards it. And by the definition provided by the leader of opposition, we clearly said that the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is a movement targeting pollution only, and it has achieved pollution. The leader of opposition has given statistics time and time again to prove and reiterate the same. I will go ahead and prove some more. So to speak about what I was saying before I was interrupted was the leader of opposition said that it does not focus on developing. However, what he meant is the goals do not focus on developing, but inherently there is development taking place. And to clearly go bang on that argument, I'm going to talk about the SDGs. The Sustainable Development Goals have 17 of them, right? SDG 6 talks about clean water and sanitation. SDG 9 talks about infrastructure. The Swachh Bharat Abhiyan targets both very effectively and has clearly reduced pollution. And that is exactly what today's debate is. And that's why we'll be opposing status quo and endorsing the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. By creation of toilets and latrines in rural areas as well as urban areas and providing funding for the same, we have effectively attained the SDG 6, or at least we are closer to attaining the SDG 6 because we clearly provided more sanitation. In fact, there's been a 40% rise not 40% rise, 40% decrease in open defecation as stated by the government, which is supposed to be an argument for us. There's quite honestly, there is nothing for me to rebut in the government's debate today because the government does not provide any points of contention. Rather, they are focused on minute technicalities which do not really substantiate today's debate. In a debate, we do not debate on extremities. We debate on the general idea of the debate and the ambit of the debate. Within the government's paradigm of interpretation, they have clearly misunderstood the motion and have no reason to contend with us or create a reasonable argument which might hold valuable in today's debate. I would also like to state about how the reduction in these causes, right? Now, I was talking about SDG 6, and I want to reiterate on SDG 9. So I was talking about infrastructure, the creation of latrines and other sanitation instruments, such as like toilets, basically, has resulted in a boom of infrastructure as well, right? We have seen financial gains, we have seen cleanliness, we have seen so much and so forth. In fact, we have gone a step above waste reduction, we have gone to waste management as well. So in 2014, when the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan came into action, we were clearing approximately 20 to 40,000 tons of waste per day. Today, we clear approximately 1 lakh to 1,20,000 tons of waste per day. It's very important to realize that the amount of waste generated in India per day is only 1 lakh. So 20,000 extra tons that the Swachh Abhiyan initiative clears is from landfills. So we're not only attaining the goals set by the SDGs, we're not only empowering the rural society and providing them with cleaner lifestyle, the cleaner sanitation and all of that. We have also affected years of hampering to the environment as well by the virtue of landfills. So what I'm trying to say is the leader of opposition was bang on by stating what the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is. We had a clear structure. We set the tone for the debate. We set a definition which limits the debate and stays within the ambit of the debate and is a reasonable paradigm of interpretation. The government has done neither of the above, has not given us a working model and not opposed the opposition at all. In fact, they have not even proposed the motion or proposed the status quo. Therefore, without a clear shred of doubt, opposition deserves to win this debate, and we have clearly stated why. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Now I would invite the government whip to take over and present his stand.
Am I audible and visible?
You want visibility? Yeah.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes.
All right, thank you. First of all, before going any further, it's beautiful how the debate has been centered around the government's proposition itself. It surprises me how the opposition failed to address the motion, whereby the motion stated that the House believes that Swachh Bharat mission has actually been very successful. However, it hasn't been able to bring a very cumulative change with respect to global climate change, global warming, pollution, etc., reasons for which have been put out by the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister. It surprises me that the opposition failed to use the 10 minutes in their speeches to actually propose what they had to say, but instead went on to read statistics to us to actually help the government's cause. So first, I would like to structure my speech in two ways. First of all, let me point out the things that the opposition failed to address. First of all, the opposition failed to address the motion, has already been said by me. Secondly, the opposition failed to understand how the use of new technology is what essentially leads us to renewable energy, as was pointed out by the speech of the Deputy Leader of Opposition, and which is what leads us to bringing a cleaner environment and bringing greener energy and ensuring that there is less carbon footprints in the environment and ensuring that global warming decreases as a whole. The opposition failed to understand that putting emphasis on rural healthcare, putting emphasis on sanitation, putting emphasis on clean water, etc., is actually what would lead into a domino effect and eventually over a course of time will show global results. The opposition failed to understand the connection between development, the connection between the rural strata of the society to what should be achieved at the global level as well. Now, let me reiterate the points that were put out by the government and actually argue why the debate should go to the government side. First of all, the government laid out very clearly how Swachh Bharat mission is a tool to use social education and social messaging to ensure a trigger in the mental behavior, to ensure that eventually we accept the fact that climate change is real, global warming is real, and these are the things that will eventually lead us to ensuring a cleaner environment. What the government also did was substantiate how we've provided various subsidies to support vulnerable groups. These are the groups actually which are at the lowest strata of the society and haven't been able to participate in the development process of the society. And the development has actually been exclusive only to the elitist groups of the society. Now, what the government also did was they went on to provide how there will be monitoring and verification measures to ensure that Swachh Bharat is implemented correctly. Now, what the opposition missed to do was point out how Swachh Bharat has actually been unsuccessful and to point out how Swachh Bharat will never be able to lead us into a scenario where a global change could be brought because of it. Now, there is another structure of why the government should get the debate. First of all, the government based their arguments on economic criteria of how the GDP will increase, how the healthcare will increase, and these are essentially things that may not make an immediate global change, as has been already stated in the motion and as is the proposition of the government, but they will eventually bring India to a more prominent global position whereby we could actually participate in the unfair and biased power structure that already exists in the society. The government also spoke about the globally social issues, which are an unfair capitalist society, whereby by the time India and such developing countries reached a fora where they could develop and use industrialization as a measure of boosting their economies, the developed countries had already deteriorated the environment to such an extent that a movement like Swachh Bharat couldn't have been able to single-handedly undo the effects of what the developed countries had done over the course of so many decades and centuries. Further on, as the Prime Minister had already stated, this movement had a very emotional connect to the entire country. which is what the opposition again failed to object or failed to answer how this could not lead into a domino effect. Now, understand the fact of it being an emotional movement. What that does is it brings India to a position where the awareness, where the education with regards to environmental issues is so top notch that you could actually go on further to propagate and to propose motions, propose issues, propose measures that could bring the environment together on issues as important as environment change. Because up until now, what has been happening in the global fora is that developed countries have been making these namesake conferences, namesake meetings, namesake protocols, which haven't really brought about any result. So the only way to go about in a systematic manner to ensure that global deterioration of environment is reduced is to first bring about something on a national level, which may not have an immediate impact on the global scenario, but it eventually would lead us to a situation that each country could participate equally in ensuring that we could get back what other countries have deteriorated for the third world or the developing countries. It again saddens me that the opposition failed to use the 10 minutes to put forth any opposition, to put forth any argument, but went on to support how Swachh Bharat has been a wonderfully successful mission, went on to just blatantly read out statistics, especially the leader of the opposition, to the rest of us to tell us how Swachh Bharat has been so successful, which I must thank the opposition for. But it really saddens me that the opposition couldn't use any measure to tell us why eventually Swachh Bharat isn't the key to development and better global development.
You now, last speaker for this round is opposition whip. Please place your stand.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I would like to start. First of all, I would thank the government for unprecedented unity that they have shown. Such unity is obviously not seen in politics nowadays, rarely in debates. But thank you for this scale of unprecedented unity you have shown towards our understanding of the movement. You may lose this debate by the virtue of the same, but I am very happy to see that the government, in fact, has strengthened the societal values of unity by standing for things that are eventually right. Anyways, moving on. First of all, I would like to exemplify the meaning of but. But refers to except for a fact and is necessarily used after a negative. That's the Merriam-Webster understanding of the word but. It's clearly evident that the government lacks basic understanding not only of public policy but also of basic English grammar. There is an understanding to law that is known as grand norm. Grand norm understanding of law goes to the very basic of law, the basic of idea that propagated that law. Nowhere did class conflict exist as an idea in the minds of policymakers while formulating the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So I don't know from where the government got the idea that this was an issue of class conflict, this was an issue of capitalist conflict. Rather, it brings into question the varied wild interest that the government holds in its mind, because nowhere did the policymakers anywhere enlighten the fact that this was an area of class conflict. Moving on. The government speech was much like a WhatsApp forward nowadays. In fact, it lacked structure, it lacked definition, it lacked points. Now, I would not stress upon the government's understanding of Swachh Bharat mission because they've already done that and they have shown how much of a failure they were in it. But what I would like to stress upon is the structure they lack. Forget formulating the law and its benefits. They failed to understand that they limited the success of a policy to a phenomena called the domino effect. Surprisingly, public policy considers no such term as a domino effect. The closest relation we have to the domino effect is a trickle-down policy in economics, which has nothing to do with the Swachh Bharat mission again. Healthcare and education are two healthcare and development are two differently targeted policies that are in no way entrangled, that are in no way dealt by the Swachh Bharat mission as a whole. Swachh Bharat mission deals with healthcare to an extent, while the Modi government has also formulated policies that deal with development as a whole. The domino effect, I don't know what the government is talking about. If such effect existed, great countries such as United States who have an issue of a form of public health care such as Obamacare would have seen an unprecedented level of development which is not at all true, which we can see in the cases of California with an all-time rising poverty rates and an all-time rising homelessness rate. So the naivety of understanding of public policy that the government holds is pretty clear in their arguments, where they feel to able differentiate between the enactment of the policy and the overseen effects which the government desires. Secondly, I would like to point out a point. When the government envisioned the Swachh Bharat mission, it wrote down 5 points. One of those points was, and I quote, to create an enabling environment for private sector participation in office and management in rural areas. I would like to reiterate one specific word: private sector participation. Even if what we believe the government's understanding of Swachh Bharat mission and the debate topic for today is correct, I fail to understand why would they go against the very tendencies of Swachh Bharat mission by calling them as capitalist evils when the government themselves formulated a policy which calls for those capitalist evils to go into rural areas and construct those toilets. This understanding of government is so flawed that they are attacking the very essentials of the understandings and of the people and of the society that is helping them. Finally, I talked to the government whip said that they were talking about changing mindsets. None of the prime minister or deputy prime minister went anything upon to stress upon the psychological understanding that Swachh Bharat mission has brought to the minds of people. In fact, it was a very stressful point that they should have stressed in the debate. And I would like to point out that it is not the job of the whip to bring new points in the debate, to rather stress upon the one that was initially given. With that, I would like to end my debate and tell the dais that we as a team win, because not only government has a flawed understanding of the policy, of the debate, they have a flawed understanding of its implementation and its future aspects as well. They have undermined the effects of Swachh Bharat mission to an extent where they have considered it to be a developmental project rather the one that is associated with the healthcare policy of rural India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, opposition whip. With this, we come to the end of this. Now, I would like the adjudicators to express their views. I would request them not to disclose the results. So, please.
Saurav sir is my senior. I think he should go ahead first.
It was a very interesting debate, and the motion itself was a bit complicated, I think. So there were two different interpretations of the motion by the government and the opposition. I think myself reading it carefully, I think I have developed an understanding of the motion myself. I won't reveal that. But whatever it is, based on their own interpretations, both the sides have made their arguments. The government side essentially said that the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has been able to bring about certain changes to the standard of living, hygiene conditions in the country, and also that has affected the economy in a positive manner. There were also some issues raised by the government in relation to the environmental issues and developmental issues. On the other hand, the opposition's main contention was the government has misinterpreted the motion. They tried to call into question the arguments made by the government, and they did it very strongly. So overall, it was quite interesting. Thank you.
Okay, so at the very onset of my comments, let me tell you just one thing. I have just 3 debates today, and let me tell you that the whip can never bring in a new point while concluding a debate. This is the basic tenet of a parliamentary debate that is being done. So I have not marked negatively for that because I understand, but then it's just for your reference that wherever you do such debates, whenever you do that, the whip has his role clearly defined. He is to put a plaster on the wall that is being constructed, that has been constructed by the president, by the prime minister or deputy or the 2 leaders of his side, whoever they might be. Coming to the interpretation of the motion, as Saurav sir rightly said, the clear reading of the motion gives it away. The motion has definitely complexities associated with it. two readings can have two different interpretations. They are ought to be, but then in our minds, the proposition is pretty clear. We have been judging this debate on the basis of that only. Personal comments, well, the Prime Minister made some fairly good points regarding the effects of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan that it has, on the development, tourism, cleanliness, and health and hygiene, class and caste. Well, that's a point that could have been elaborated further by certain precedents or certain examples, but then that's okay. We won't get too deep into that. The leader of opposition has also made his point pretty clear. He stood out for his side. But one thing is, very, I should say, the opposition to this debate was entirely based upon the pretext that the government has misunderstood the motion. Well, they might have misunderstood the motion, but you had to explain your understanding of the motion as well, the reasoning behind your understanding of the motion as well. You did that at some point of time. The debate took off really well. It deviated at some point of time. It came back. Fairly enough, it was a good day. We had some great points, some loose ends as well. We'll be marking on that accordingly. And I hope you do good next time, and all the best. Thank you.
Could you please press upon the rest of the bit of personal feedback? I'm pretty sure the
I'm sorry, you're not audible.
am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible.
So I think this is a request that I think the government too will agree upon. Could you give a bit of personal feedback to each of us, like you went to the Prime Minister and the Deputy Leader and the Leader of Opposition? Could you please do the same for the rest four positions as well, as to we can implement?
Yeah, definitely. I would do that. I was just thinking about the time. I would do that.
Excuse me. Sir, if you don't mind, before doing that, could you also tell us who's the best speaker for today's debate?
I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to tell you that.
Oh, okay, cool.
Personal comments, well, the Deputy Prime Minister laid on some good points upon the initial submissions made by the Prime Minister. He spoke about, he gave examples at length about the different, the contamination issues, the health issues that were being faced by the people when the Swachh Bharat mission was not there. The technology, the use of technology in, cleaning the environment. See, there was a second part to the motion as well, that as a developing country, is India or whether or not India is contributing to the global warming. I think that point could have been elaborated in both ways by both the sides. You should have focused on it a little bit much than what you did. Fairly good points. The deputy leader of opposition, I think that you needed to pull up your socks a bit, because at some point of time we were just not able to connect the dots that you were leaving around. They were just lying scattered over there. However, your argumentative skills were good. I personally wish you all the best. The government whip, well, my initial comments were the same. The whip is not supposed to make any new submission. There were a few points that you made. I would not point them out because it would initially, in practicality, it would be giving out my verdict. But then the whip is not supposed to lay out new points. That's a major takeaway for the government whip. The opposition whip did a fairly good job as well. The summarizing of the arguments made by both his leaders, and it was a fairly good debate to judge.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah. With this, we come to the end of this round and this day. Thank you, the adjudicators and the participants for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.